We good?
Yep, you're good. You're good.
Awesome.
Oh,
And the other thing is okay.
Slideshow. Slideshow from the beginning. Then there's a clicker.
Yeah, that's all good. I just want to make sure because I want to get right to a certain one. Hang in there with me, guys. They're on Zoom. Hey, Kevin, did they give you the pre-qual script? This thing in that materials? I thought. Is it probably towards the end?
Yes, it is the very last one.
Where's it at? And it's what I'm starting with. So. Uh-oh, what did I just do? How do I? Are you sure it's in here? Because I don't see it. I'm looking for that. It might not be in the PowerPoint. Maybe that's the issue.
So then it's in the PDF. And then let me, so in the PDF then.
You know what? Don't worry about it. If they have it, I don't want you to go through all this trouble. If they've got it.
30 seconds.
All right.
Can I be nosy and ask how many participants are live?
Live? 2.
I should have came in. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I like being live. I'll come in next time.
Okay. Yep, there it is right there. That's it. Yeah. Okay, and they could see that on there, right?
I'll do a new share for that.
All right. Awesome. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. I'll take this off now that I'm not top of anybody. Hope you guys are doing well. How many are on Zoom here? Let's see. Looks like. Yeah, I can't say I see the other ones. Oh, 14. Great. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Glad you're with us. Can you guys hear me okay on there? Kind of give a thumbs up if you can. Awesome. Okay, great. Okay. It's really awkward for me because it's me and Joe, and you guys are on a screen like 16 miles away. Kevin nicely got us all together. So I'll do the best I can to give you the best that I can as far as the delivering content and whatnot. We're doing objection handling techniques. I know we're in a listing emphasis right now with the company because I think listings are lean right now. They're not many. What I want to do is this. I mean, I normally like give you my background and stuff like that. I've just been in real estate like 27 years. I've been with Keller Williams 9, and trust me, I'm going to give you a lot of useful information that you're going to be able to use today if you want to on listing appointments. The main thing is number one, I want to make sure that you have the listing appointment queued up. Now, here's the thing. This isn't a class to get appointments. This is a class to prep and handle the appointment as far as objections go. The classes you want to take for getting appointments are 2. One is List Your Way to Success. Gary Ubaldini teaches that about once every 3 or 4 months. And then the other class, and it's an FES class, is called Win with Sellers. There's several people that teach that. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Turn your sound off on your computer. It's going to really throw me off.
Go for it. You're good.
All right. Win with Sellers. Jackie Ellis teaches that. Melissa DiMaria teaches that. There's a couple different instructors to teach that. So you're going to want to take that to get the listings. Secondly, I want to make sure we hit any objections that you're getting that I might not have in my group of objections that I'm going to teach you, because you see, there's about 10 that come about 95% of the time. Okay? So what are some objections you want to make sure we hit? Just unmute yourself and tell me what you want to make sure we hit.
Oh, we're going to be seeing some other listings.
Oh, you're going to interview more than one agent? Okay. Okay. Competing agents. Okay. for business. What else? What else do you want to make sure we hit? Any objection you're hearing more lately than others?
I have one, Howard.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yes, I'm hearing a lot, especially like with FSBOs. Well, I can see, people around me are selling houses on their own. So, why do I need you?
We're going to spend a lot of time on for sale by owner
Okay,
because that's business for you, number one. And number two, for sale by owners think they're succeeding right now.
mhm,
But if for sale by owners, Dan Mac likes that. That's good. For sale by owners, their viewpoint of a perspective of success is getting their price and getting the house sold. What they don't realize is a lot of times they're giving up 10, 20, 30, $40,000 because they may not even know what they're doing when it comes to the negotiation piece. So we're going to spend a lot of time on for sale by owners. What else? Anything else that's unique that you're hearing as objections?
Oh, I can go with these other companies where they're obviously 1% commission.
Okay, so commission is in general. Yep, we spent time on that too. Commission in general, like discount brokers.
Yeah.
Because discount brokers get you a discount bottom line, right? So you're going to remember that. Okay, what else? Any others? No? Okay, cool. All right, so here's what I want you to do. You see on the screen share we have in front of you the qualifying the listing appointment script. That's where we're going to start. Or I'm holding it up here. It's on the screen share itself. That's where we're going to start. And the reason is because what happens is someone sets an appointment. Now, let me ask you a question. If you set an appointment, how quickly do you want it to occur? What's the time window? Go ahead, Joe.
Within a week.
Yeah, I mean, week's too long, I
know,
think.
that's what I'm
A
saying,
week's
like a week's like old school.
too long, yeah.
2 days at most.
I mean, I would say at most 48 hours. Here's what you should know. The longer you set the appointment out, the less likely it is to occur. It's the same thing we do with recruiting appointments, same exact thing. I think so. It seemed to be good. I'll just scream if we need to. Thanks, Kevin. And here's the deal. Today is what, Tuesday? So like, let's say I set an appointment for Thursday and I'm going to meet with the seller on Thursday at 2 o'clock or something like that. The script I'm going to go over with you right now is another call you're going to have with them to remind them of the appointment and make sure you put enough either doubt drops or solidifications in so that you're going to get the listing when you go. Using this script properly is going to raise your odds of getting the listing by probably 70 to 80%. Because I'll show you why as we go. So what I want you to do is look at the top. Can everybody see that on the top here? Or starting right up there. Okay, and I'm going to have you make some changes right away from what you have on the script because it's a little outdated. Hi, this is Howard Weinstein with Keller Williams Realty. I'm calling to you and I want you to cross out the word confirm and I want you to change that to remind. Calling to remind you of our appointment on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Then I want you to cross out, does that time still work for you? Okay, so it's just, hi, this is Joe with Keller Williams. I'm calling to remind you of our appointment on Thursday at 2 o'clock. And I go right on, before I come out, blah. Why did I make those changes? Anybody know?
Because you're opening a door to have them reschedule.
Exactly, or cancel.
Or cancel.
Yeah, well, you're confirming, well, I'm unconfirming. Right, does that time still work for you? Nope, doesn't. So I'm just changing that to make sure that there's a solidification where that's concerned. Before I come out, there are a couple of questions I want to ask you. Now, the next question on the script, I want you to circle it, highlight it, star it. It's probably the most important question you're going to ask the entire list of or the entire time you talk to the seller. What are the 3 most important factors you'll consider in choosing the agent and company who sells your home? What are the 3 most important factors you'll consider in choosing the agent and company who sells your home? The answer to this question is the blueprint for the entire appointment. When I started in real estate 27 years ago, that's right, I'm 1,000 years old, and I worked for a company that was called, that was the name of the company. They gave me a listing presentation book, and I went through and I just flipped through it. Here's what I do. Our company started in 1906. I've done this. I will do that. Blah, 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 blah. And the person's just getting glazed and they're at the kitchen table, and I'm not connecting with them at all. Remember, the listing appointment is not about you and it's not about Keller Williams. It's about them and their needs. So the answer to that question is going to be, number 1, what's going to be part of your pre-listing package if you do one. Number 2, what you're going to cover in the appointment. So they might say to you, Dan, my three most important factors are a company that's up to date with technology, a company that's going to give me a lower commission, and a company that and an agent that has sold. My home's worth 1.4 million. An agent that has sold at least $5 million plus homes. Okay, so number one, it's going to tell you what the appointment's going to be about. Number two, what other thing is it going to show you? What other things are you going to get out of this?
The objections we need to handle.
Yes, the objections ahead of time, right? So if I say to you, I only want an agent that sold 3 homes over $1 million, and you've not sold any, you're going to want to know that before the appointment, aren't you? If you find out at the kitchen table, aren't you done at that point? Because if you haven't done it, your appointment's over, right? Or they might say to you, well, I want an agent that has sold 5 homes in my subdivision. I live in West Chase. If you sold 5 West Chase homes, great. If you haven't, we're done. And then you've wasted all that prep time and everything else. So you're going to find it's either 3 or 4 locations on the script that's going to draw the objections out of them before you get to the house. Because that way you're A, prepped if you've got to incorporate another agent or do something like that. And B, you're already going to have your lips loaded and scripted as far as what you're going to say before you get there. Okay. The other thing is if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of this script for 1 second, and you see on the bottom down here, it says, I'll be sending over a package of information. Will you take a few moments and review it? That's your pre-listing package if you're going to use it. Do clients read pre-listing packages? Say no. No, they don't even look at them. They end up on a coffee table, and that's the end of them until you get there. But if you put the answer to the question up here about the 3 most important factors in the top of your listing pre-package, they're subliminally going to go, oh, Renee really listened to what I was asking, or Sharon really has a strong understanding of what I'm looking for. So it's going to automatically start to set you up for success for the seller. So I can't stress that you have to ask this question. And then like Diana Kokosi used to teach us a bold, shut up and listen to what they have to say. Don't start blabbing away. Let them talk. Okay? Joe.
Yeah, I do just want to verify, when you said I'll be sending over the listing package, were you saying that doing that confirms the listing?
I'm saying if you do a pre-listing package, which a lot of people don't, but if you do one, make sure the top of it answers to those 3 objections or those 3 elements.
Okay,
They might say technology, put technology at the top. They might say your marketing plan being comprehensive, put a sample marketing plan at the top.
And what if you couldn't, like you didn't sell the $1 million homes and
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We're going to get to that. That's in the objections.
Okay, thank you.
But the bottom line right now is I want to make sure you know that that's a factor
Okay,
for them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Any other questions before we go on? Zoom people okay? We good? Okay, cool. All right, next. If what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, are you planning to list your home with me when I come out on Thursday at 2? Now, on the left side of the margin here, I want you to write down trial close, because that's what you're doing. Also, between those dots, what are they called? What are those statements called? Sell your home, list your home with me. Anybody know what those are? They're embedded commands. That's exactly what they are. So you want to separate those and emphasize those when you're speaking with the seller. Okay. Next, do you plan to interview more than one agent for the job of selling your home? Someone brought that up earlier. Are we dealing with other agents that we're competing with in the process? Why would you want to know this before you get to the appointment? Why would you want to know?
So you know what you're up against.
Yeah, you know who you're up against, and what else?
You want to ask him for the opportunity to come back again if he has any other questions.
Well, it's going to have to do with your staging and when you're going to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you might want to write the word doubt drops. Like, I'm going to, like if they tell me let's just say you're competing against a RE/MAX agent. RE/MAX makes the majority of their money on what's called desk fees or office rent or franchise fees, not on commissions. So their incentive to get your house sold is barely there. Versus a Keller Williams, where the company is incented to have your house sold, the agent's incented to have your house sold, KWRI based on royalties incented to have your house sold. So you want to be listing with a company where everyone's invested in that process. Or do they have a national presence? Or do they have an international presence? So depending on what the answer to that question is going to have a lot to do with how I'm going to stage myself for that. Okay, next 3 questions, tell me again, and how soon do you have to be there? Right on the right side of those words, motivation. Where are you moving to? LA, fantastic. Why are you moving there? Job transfer, wonderful. How soon do you have to be there? We need to be there for a start day on March 1st. Awesome. Okay, it's just motivation. Now, what I want you to think about when you're asking those three questions is when you set the appointment, let's say you set the appointment yesterday and you're on this call tomorrow, are you getting the same answers to these questions as you did before? You most likely will, but if you're not, that means they're lying and they could be kind of playing games with you. And as an agent, I'm very protective of my time. Okay. Next, if I sell your home in the next 30 days, would that pose a problem for you? Why do we ask this question? It does tie into motivation. Yep. What else? That's going to go back to motivation as well. Here's why I asked this question. I want them to see that I'm confident that I can get their house sold. Remember, you're selling a service. You're not selling a house. Think of it like that. Like, remember, the market's so lean right now that I can put my house on the market today at market value, and if it shows decently, it's going to be sold probably by tonight in Pinellas and Hillsborough and Pasco County. Okay, or if I put it on the market for 10% or 20% over market value, it's probably not going to sell. So remember, I'm building that rapport because the house is going to sell whether it's me or somebody else doing it. I want to be able to sell my customer service for them to make sure that happens. Okay, what would happen if your home did not sell? Again, we're trying to find out, are they in a pre-foreclosure situation? Are they in a short sale potential situation? Did they do a mortgage forbearance and it's run out and now they don't have the money to pay because they've lost a job based on COVID? Like, what is the situation we're looking at with that? Okay, next, when I see you, how much do you want to list your home for realistically? Now, people argue with me about this sometimes because they're like, you don't want to get into price over the phone. I do get on price over the phone or on Zoom or script ahead of time. Why do I want to know that question?
Are they like pretty much, are they in a facade of like my house? Like what are you dealing with?
Yeah, Joe's talking about, are they in a zone of reality for the price? So in other words, is the house worth 400 and they tell you 560? Could be, but I want to know what the sales price reality zone in their head is. Okay, so for the sake of Zoom versus live room, Joe, role play with me for a minute, and let's just say you say 550, but it's worth 450. Okay, so Joe, when I meet with you on Thursday at 2, how much do you want to list your home for, realistically?
I was thinking 550.
550. Now, as a professional real estate agent, continue to look at the script. I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I assume you'll embed a command. List with me, Joe, at the price that will cause your home to sell. So what's the price you won't go below?
Probably about
500. See, so I just got a $50,000 price reduction out of Joe, and I haven't even gone to the house yet. So what I'm doing is I'm slowly starting to land him into reality. And I know that he's going to get to reality because A, his motivation's there, and B, he's already starting to lower his price with me. If he was like 550 all day long, I don't care if the house is worth 400, I might not want to spend the time with that person. Remember, my time is money, and I got to really think about that. So keep in mind that I'm going to start to listen to how they answer those questions. Okay. How much do you owe on, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just because that point becomes very powerful because I think us agents, we got to get there. I want the appointment and I want to go there. And we got to learn to let it
So
go.
you might not be able to hear Joe, but he's talking about sometimes our motivation is higher than it should be as an agent, and we just want to get in the house, but it might be a complete waste of our time. And see, what I see agents doing is the first 4 to 6 months in the business, they're more likely to do that. And then once they get burned 4 or 6 times by like sitting in a house or because remember, you don't want your sign in front of a house that's $100,000 overpriced. I don't care what the market is, because then you're going to develop a reputation in the MLS and the marketplace to, he's always got overpriced listings and people won't even show them after a certain point. And as big as our real estate community is, it's not that big, especially out of the people that are actually selling real estate, not doing 3 deals a year. So it's just something to keep in mind. So does that kind of accent what you said? Okay, how much do you owe on the property? Again, we're asking this question because are they like, is it worth 300 and they owe 400? Or could they do maybe it's worth 300 and they owe 50? Could they do a, what do you call that? Seller financing scenario, Right now, mortgage rates are still in the 2s or 3s or whatever they are, and money's basically free. But we've just had an election. Thank goodness we just had, I'm not political, but there is a vaccination that's being distributed as we speak. I mean, there's different things that are happening, but as things could get better, interest rates could go up. Right now, the Fed's keeping them low. So let's just say in a year from now, interest rates are 7% instead of 2%. Do you think your 3% loan might be attractive? Yes. Remember, you're the expert that the seller's relying on for that information. So just something to keep in mind where that's concerned. Okay. Have you ever thought about selling it yourself? You might be going, why are you putting that idea in their head? Because that's a for sale by owner, right? But here's the thing. In the market we're in right now, if you're kidding yourself if you haven't thought that they aren't thinking about selling it themselves. They're thinking about it. But if they say yes, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to cover for sale by owners really heavily at my listing presentation. Like and I'll show you in a little bit here. I'm going to bring some extra materials where for sale by owners are considered. I'm going to really key in on that. Okay. Will you help finance the home for the buyer, or you need the cash out? We just talked about that. It could be an advantage, or maybe it's not. All right, starting in the next statement, it says, will you quickly describe your home for me? I want you to write on the right side of that personality profile. Personality profile, okay? And I'll explain what I mean by that, okay? If I say to a seller, quickly describe your home for me, and they go, sure, it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath with 3,000 square feet and a pool, okay? That's one personality profile. Maybe a D, sometimes could be an S, right? Will you quickly describe your home for me? Sure. My home sits on a cul-de-sac. The reason we wanted it to be on a cul-de-sac is I have 3 small children. They're grown now. They're in high school. But when we bought the house, it was really important to me to make sure that they can go out, ride their bikes, and play and not have to worry about a car hitting them. Secondly, when you walk in the front of the house, there's Italian marble tile in the front foyer. We had that ordered and custom done. My wife and I flew to Italy, and we looked and saw what do we like and what do we want. Now, with the way the sun hits the front of the house, like, okay, I can stop. You get the idea, right? And I'm not exaggerating. You're going to have sellers like the first example I gave you, and you're going to have sellers like the second example. If there's anything you hear from me teach you today, do not present to the seller A like the personality of seller B. If you start going down that road, they're going to be like, dude, I'm done. I've got 30 minutes. What's the deal? What are you pricing my house at? And what's the commission? Otherwise, I'm done. The other way around, if I go A to B or B to A, whatever my example was, and you rush through it, I'm going to be like, don't you care about me? Don't you care about my house? Don't you see how beautiful this house is? Like, what are you doing here? You're not even listening to what I'm saying. I see agents make that mistake all the time. Remember, present to who you're presenting to, not based on what you prefer. Joe?
In that situation too, I think that's why this even is so important, because if I go in with a templated, same old, presentation
Right.
for each person, it's not going to win.
It doesn't.
And this is really allowing me to get to know them and build that relationship.
Right. Joe's saying that if you present to every seller the same way, it's not going to work. You've got to adapt to who your audience is. And so how do you figure out that audience? I mean, I'm giving you very graphic examples based on these questions, but I want you to think about how they answer all their questions. Remember, if you're doing more talking than they're talking, there's a problem. You should be talking minimally, asking the right questions and listening for their responses, and then tailoring your presentation based on how they're responding. We talk about I think it's neuro-linguistic programming. I think that's the terminology for it. Right. So there's all kinds of studies with that based on matching speed of talk, matching hand motions, matching, style. But this gets more even in depth with that because we're talking about what their personality comfort level is going to be in the process itself. So just something to think about where that's concerned. Okay. All right. How would you rate your home on a scale from 1 to 10? What do you think most sellers say to that? Disagree.
I'll say over like 7.
I think 7, 8, yeah, something like that, right? And here's why I say that. Everybody finds something wrong with their house once they're living in it. I don't care who you are. I just bought a house in February. I've been in it just barely a year. I've already found why this and that? It's just, you can custom build a house and and still have things wrong with it. So those are usually the things that are the difference. So if I did say, how would you rate your home on a scale from 1 to 10, like Joe said, like a 7, and I say, well, what would make it a 10? And the seller might say, well, it backs up to Belcher Road, or it is on a main road rather than a cul-de-sac, or it has a family room and a living room because it was built in the 80s, but boy, we wish it had just one big great room. Or we thought we could get by without an eating kitchen, but now we needed one. Whatever it is. You're going to take notes on everything they're saying regarding that. When are you going to use those notes? When is that going to come back in for use for you? All right, Jesse, do you know?
Either when they convert later to buy the next home, or in dealing with.
Think about this house though.
Pricing.
Pricing at the time of listing, that's the first time you're going to use that information. When you're like, it should be 424.9, they're like, no, 474. Yeah, but remember when we talked about what would make it a 10? Okay. All right, so that's one time. When are you going to use it next? Pretend the house is not selling.
Oh.
Price
For
reduction,
the price
exactly.
adjustment, yeah.
Exactly, price adjustment. That's exactly right. So that'd be the next time when it's been on the market, like for 30 days, you had no offers, whatever the situation is. And again, it might not be applicable in today's market, but it could be a month from now or 2 months from now. When are we going to use it next? We've used it at pricing. We've used it for price adjustment. When might you use it again? How about negotiation, right? We're $10,000 apart. We got the spire up to 430 and the seller's like 440, I'm not. And one of my great mentors told me to say to a seller, so in other words, you want to buy your house back for $10,000. Let's make sure I understand this. What do you mean by that? Well, because of $10,000, you're going to lose a potential sale. So I love that scripting for that. But again, I might use it at that point in time too. Okay. Yeah, so you're going to buy let's say you're $5,000 apart and you're like, I'm not going to lower than 5,000. And I will say to a seller, so let me make sure I understand that, Mrs. Seller, you're going to buy your house back for $5,000 because you're still going to be in it. And here we are, because of $5,000, you're still sitting here. Because remember, we all know that usually the first offer is the best offer. How many times we have sellers like, I'm just going to wait for the next, and then it's usually 5% lower. The longer a home is on the market, the lower it usually sells for, right? So we'll talk about that more in objections, what a buyer asks when they go to write an offer. Okay, what would make it a 10? We talked about that. Next, is there anything positive or negative about your home that could affect the price? This is when we have the conversation about what's called saleability versus value. Saleability versus value. What's the difference between those two? What's an example of saleability versus value?
One's how fast the offer comes in.
Think about features of a home. Think about the house itself, or elements of a home. Jesse, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say definitionally, saleability is what other people will pay for it, and value is what people see in it. So I guess I don't know what the feature difference is.
Would it be saleability is like it's 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage is what the market's doing, and the value is what?
I want you to think of it like this. Saleability is curb appeal. I think saleability is the kitchen was just redone.
Yeah.
Saleability is it has all new flooring. Saleability is it's on a conservation. And when they bought it new, they had to pay a $30,000, whatever they call that, upgrade fee. But when you sell it, the appraiser doesn't really care. That's saleability. Value is it's 4 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms. Remember, a 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot home is worth more than a 3-bedroom, 2,500 square foot home. That's why people are, I did my price per square foot. Well, that doesn't always work. Because if it's a 2-bedroom, 4,000 square foot home, no one cares. That's what they call functional obsolescence, right? So you need to think about that when it comes to value. we use this phrase all the time. If an appraiser can't count it, neither can we. If an appraiser can't count it, neither can we. I'll repeat that one more time. If an appraiser can't count it, neither can we. And the reason I say that is because someone might say to you, well, Joe, I just put new HVAC in and we redid the kitchen. The kitchen cost me $65,000 and the new HVAC was $7,000. So I'm assuming we're going to add $72,000 to the price, right? No, wrong. Because all houses need kitchens and all houses need HVAC in Clearwater, Florida. So from that standpoint, no, it's not necessarily going to add value because of the fact that it's an appraiser can't count it. Now, might it give a little bit? Maybe. Because remember, like think about a pool. A pool might cost the seller $66,000 to put in with babbling brooks and hot tubs and everything else. Is the appraiser going to give that pool $66,000? Absolutely not. That's why when people say, I want to have a pool, then you buy a house that already has the pool. Don't you put the pool in unless you're planning on living there for the next 20 years. So that's the conversation. Jesse?
Okay, so value is core features that directly affect the actual value.
Think tangible. Think
Price
tangible.
of the
Yep.
house, where saleability doesn't affect the price, but it might make people more attracted.
Right, it makes it sell faster. I think someone did try to say that on the Zoom thing. Sorry, Zoom people, about that. I think I did hear someone say how fast offers come in. And yes, saleability will bring in offers faster or contracts faster. We know that. You're at a listing appointment, you're like, oh, this is going to sell in 5 minutes based on the condition of the home. Saleability can also be affected by, we can only show it when the cat's sleeping on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 1. Like that affects saleability too, because you just can't get to the house. Right, exactly, yeah, because they're like, they think you're not going to sell it because you don't let people in, right? Any questions on any of that? We good? Okay, we talked about the pre-listing package. Next, do you have any questions before I arrive? Okay, so Joe, ask me the question. Yeah, what's your commission? Well, do you see what I'm saying? Like 7% when we're not meeting or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, or do you have any questions before I arrive? Yeah, how many homes have you sold in the last year? Do you have any questions before I arrive? My home's worth 1.4. How many homes have you sold million plus? Do you have any questions before I arrive? Yeah, how fast will the house be sold? Do you have any questions before? You see what I'm saying? Like I want you to write on the side of this objections. This is another opportunity for them to put objections on the table. Now, listen to me carefully. What I want you to think about is we don't handle objections on the phone. We acknowledge objections on the phone. Let me repeat that again. We don't handle objections on the phone. We acknowledge objections. So have you sold any homes in my neighborhood before? It sounds like my experience in East Lake Oaks is important to you. We'll definitely discuss that when I come out on Thursday. What's your commission? It sounds like commission's important to you, but I'm going to ask you a question, Mrs. Seller. What's more important to you, the commission you pay or the amount you walk from the closing table with? We'll definitely discuss that when I come out on Thursday. Like, I'm not going to handle that unless they're like, look, you're not coming to my house unless their commission's 4%. Then you might have to handle it. But I will tell you that's only like 10% of the time that happens. 90% of the time, as long as they know, you know what their main concerns are, they're usually going to be okay. Yes, sir.
And in that situation, it's almost they're testing to see your negotiation skills right away.
They could be. They very well could be. Yeah, they could be testing your negotiation skills up front. The bottom line is I want you equipped, whether it be words or personnel. Because I will tell you, like I keep using the $1 million example, maybe you haven't sold a home that's over $1 million plus and they're only going to list with you. Well, I would rather bring another agent with me that has and do a co-listing and get 50% of a listing than not get anything at all. I'd rather that. Okay. So it's just something to think about. Okay. Next, I've only spoken to you. Are there any other decision makers? This might seem like common sense, and especially with Zoom world, it shouldn't be as much of an issue. But if there's anything I can't deal with is I make a 2-hour presentation and then all of a sudden they're like, my mama lives in Farmington, New York, and you need to make a presentation to her too. Well, why don't we just have her there? You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to either Zoom the person in or record it and send it to them or whatever that is. I'm going to make sure that that's covered as well ahead of time. So remember, your time is money. Like when you're doing your 2021 business planning, you should have done a business plan because we've had 3 business planning clinics. Business plan, a growth plan and a profit and loss. You should know your per hour time. And you don't, if your per hour time is $200, $300, $500 an hour, whatever it is, you don't want to do these presentations 2 and 3 and 4 times. Okay, it's the same thing as when you're showing property. You work with somebody for 2 weeks, you finally land on a house, and like, I'm gonna bring Pappy over to look at this. And all of a sudden, you're like, I don't know what this is that you found, but you're not buying it. You have to start all over again. And I remember being an agent going, oh, why is Pappy here? He's ruining it. You know, like that kind of thing. So anyway, questions before we move on?
Poor Pappy's now stuck in a home.
What's that?
Poor Pappy's now stuck in a home and can't see anyone.
That's right. Pappy's not in home. Pappy, yeah, you want Pappy to have COVID or anything. Okay. Okay, we good with that? Okay, yes, Jesse.
So is one of our sub goals to try and hit every single one of these questions?
On the pre-qualification script, yes. Not the objections, but on that, yes, because the more of those questions you get answered, the higher the percentage of closing you're going to have to get to the house and get that appointment. I mean, get that listing. Okay, so just to keep that in mind. Okay, I want to flip over to the actual objections themselves. Let me see if I can do this. PowerPoint. Back to that. Oh, where'd the screen share go on here? Hold on, sorry guys. I know you've got them. All right, where did I'm at Mac person, so like I don't know where my screen share went on this Zoom. Let's see if I here.
Sure, Dan can tell you.
I got it. I think we're good. Let's get a PowerPoint. Let's get a share. Ah, there we go. Okay, and then we're gonna go to slideshow. You guys with me still? Let me go over here. You don't need to see all that junk. Okay. Are you on there with me where you see we only want to give you a 30, 60, blah, blah, blah? Are you not seeing
Yes,
it?
I see it.
Awesome. Beth sees it. We all see it. Okay, cool. All right. Just making sure. Okay. All right. First objection we're going to talk about. We only want to give you a 30, 60, 90-day listing. I know, here's the deal. Right now, listings are selling pretty quickly if they're priced properly. Like right now, if you go in the MLS and something's sitting for 40 days, you're like, something's wrong with it. It's either a dump or something's wrong with it drastically, or it's just massively, massively overpriced, okay? So with that being said, I want you to, what do you think most of these people are that say they only want to give you X amount of days to list? What kind of seller are they? I don't know if they're for sub owner. I tend to think they're more an expired. And the reason I say that is because they were with a seller, with an agent. The agent like sucked and they got stuck with the agent and couldn't get out of the contract. So that's what I think of. So I actually literally wrote expired on the side of my scripting there for this. Okay, number one. Number two, you don't get paid more because you had a house listed for longer. It's not part of the equation. So honestly, first of all, you're Keller Williams, so you have the autonomy to make your own business decisions. That's the beauty of this company. When I started in real estate 27 years ago, I had to go to my broker, can I list my property for, like they had to authorize my commissions, everything. But I didn't know from any different. And there wasn't Keller Williams then anyway in my area. But my point is if homes are selling in 15 days in that subdivision and they want to give you a 45-day listing and you want to take that risk, that's your business decision. If you want to do it, it's fine. There's no award in getting a longer listing. But be careful. When you do a listing presentation, there's two things you're going to have on the table. And any objection we talk about today is going to come back to those two things. Who knows what they are? What are the two elements you're going to have on the table when you're doing a listing presentation that any objection goes back to?
Price and commission?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? Is that Dan?
Yeah, price and commission?
No. The two things you're going to present through,
Oh.
Dan.
Oh, yeah, I was actually thinking the same thing he said.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. One is the marketing plan, and one is the CMA. Marketing plan, market analysis. Marketing plan, market analysis. Everything goes back to one of those two elements. Now, here's what you should know. In this situation, if the seller is saying, I only want to give you a 30-day listing, or 60-day listing or whatever it is, but it's taking 140 days to sell in that subdivision, I'm going to tell them, look, we can have your house sold in any amount of days you want. In fact, I can have your house sold today if you put the right price on it. You want a 1-day price, a 30-day price, a 60-day price? It's going to go back to their motivation, and it's going to go back to how quickly they want the property sold and what kind of price they want for the property. So you see where I have on there, it says we can sell your home in 30 days. Let's hit this on here. If we give it a 30-day price. The average home in your subdivision is taking 45 days to sell. What makes you think your house will sell faster? Now let me pause. This is when we come back to saleability and value conversation. Because in that instance, they're going to start to go, well, my house is going to sell faster because we just put a new kitchen in. Right, or whatever they are. We did this and we paid that. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sell that much faster. It just depends on the condition of the market at that point in time. Next bullet point. You have a full copy of my marketing plan. And if there's anything I'm not doing, you can contact me and I'll release you from the listing. That's your business decision. Now, two things. One, and the Keller Williams, and I bleed red and white and black and whatever all our colors are, but the 14-step marketing plan isn't enough. There needs to be like a 70-point, 80-point, 90-point. Like I had a 100-point marketing plan. You know why? Because when you look at an ALTA or a HUD statement or a closing statement, and it's got $616.48, $938.84, $21,460.14. Like that's your line, right? Your line on the HUD statement, granted you're paying half to the other company, and if you're not capped, you're paying a portion to Keller Williams, and you're paying some to Uncle Sam, and blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is your line is the biggest line on the statement. So you need to make sure you're showing your value through your value proposition and all the things you do. So your marketing plan needs to be as comprehensive as possible. Some people are like, I've got this, I've got that, and I've got this. Everything goes on there. Sign up, sign now, lockbox on, lockbox out, taking call, feedback, setting up, showing time, tech, Facebook campaigns, ads, anything you do for command. All of it goes on there. Whether you're doing it or it's leveraged, it all goes on the marketing plan. So your marketing plan should have at least 80 to 100 things on it. Because you're doing at least 80 to 100 things. If it doesn't, something's wrong. Okay, so just something to think about where that's concerned. Okay, any questions on shorter listings that I didn't cover? Very cool. All right, next. I told you we're going to spend a decent amount of time on for sale by owners. That's the next one. Oh, let me flip it on here, sorry. We can save the commission by selling it ourselves. Now remember, listen, if there's anything you do is key in on with me on this today, because a lot of people think they can be successful as a for sale by owner right now, okay? All right, number one, are you concerned about the liability involved when it comes to disclosure? Okay, most litigation involving a for sale by owner and courts today, and our attorneys will tell you this, involve a seller. And it's not even like they're trying to be deceptive or fraudulent. They just don't know the difference. We had a flood in the kitchen and a flood in the garage. We fixed it. We painted it. We don't have to disclose it. Oh, yes, you do. Right? So just something to keep in mind when it comes to that. And a lot of sellers don't know that. I will typically bring a copy of a seller's disclosure statement with me, and I will show it to a for sale by owner seller so they can see that it's like, what is it now? I think it's 5 or 6 pages long. So there's things about it and about the property around it that they have to disclose where that's concerned. Secondly, let's talk about all the negotiable pieces to a contract. Now, this is where you're really going to educate a seller into the value of a real estate agent, whether they think the house will sell or not. So I start asking questions at this point. Key in with me, Zoom people, okay? Mrs. Seller, when you get escrow, do you know how much to ask for? Their usually answer is no. How much should I ask for? Well, it all depends. Are you asking for it in 2 phases? Are you asking for it in pre-inspection and then post-inspection? Oh, by the way, where can that money go? Can it be commingled with your funds? Are you setting up a separate account for that? Okay, now let's talk further about the negotiable aspects of the contract. How are you negotiating repairs? Are you selling this house as is or in a standard manner? And then how are the repairs going to be done? And how are they separated with wood-related versus permit-related versus general repairs? And what about latent defects and how they affect the repairs? Okay, who's paying the closing costs on this property? Are you familiar with the government closing costs that a seller is not allowed to pay? Are you aware that you could be sued when it involves VA and you could be doing something that's illegal? Do you see what I'm doing? I just ask question after question after question after question. I can ask 30, 40, 50 questions regarding the contract. I usually only have to ask 4 or 5, and if a sale by owner is like, oh my God, I don't want to, how do we sell this through you? Like, that's where it stops right there. Like, I got 20% of my business as an agent through for sale by owners because I just ask negotiable contract questions. So all I do is I keep a copy of the contract with me. And there's what, I think 13 pages of the contract with 22 subsections and 36 addenda. And I can just pull any of those out and start asking them questions about it, and they don't know. Now, what might they do? We're hiring a lawyer. We got an attorney that's going to do it. Okay, great. Is the attorney incented by how much you get for the property? Well, no, I'm paying them by the hour. Absolutely you are. So in other words, if the house doesn't sell, do you slow the attorney the money if it falls through? Oh, you better believe you do. Right? So I just start asking the questions. Now, interestingly enough, when I was a managing broker in Myers Beach, when I first started in leadership, one of my agents brought a seller to the door of the office who was crying in the doorway. She was a for sale by owner seller. And I'm like, take her to a conference room and tell me what the hell's going on here. So he did, and he came back. I said, what happened? And he said, well, she sold her property and she thought she got full price for it. Because remember, if a sell by owner thinks, I'll just go to Office Depot and I find a blank contract and fill in the number and I'm sold. Like, that's what they think it is. And that's what she did. So she didn't know what she was doing. And the buyer had an attorney working on the buyer's behalf. And they put, you know where it's got additional terms? I think it's section 18 or 19. Seller to contribute $25,000 to seller concessions to buyer at time of closing. So she thought she sold it for, say, $400,000, but she sold it for $375,000. She didn't know because she signed it. I sold it, and there's a full price on the front page. Yay! No, it wasn't, because she discounted $25,000. So I will always have 2 or 3 or 4 what I call horror stories that I share with the sell by owner seller, so they understand that, like, yeah, it's not that simple about just filling in the one page or just hiring an attorney. So keep that in mind. And I keep the negotiable aspects of the contract out with me, even when I'm calling for sell by owner sellers. Oh, we got this. 3 houses already sold in our neighborhood in less than 6 weeks. Oh, great. How about blah? And then I just start vomiting those questions. Keep in mind what I do is I go to .loop or DocuSign, whatever your fancy, and I print out every single form we've got, every one of them. And then if I'm at the house live, I will go, we're at the kitchen table, and I go, can I use your dining room table for a minute? What for? And I go over and I just start putting all the addenda all over the table, sloppily, purposely, all over. And they're like, what is all of that? And they're like, everything it takes to sell your house. And I'm like, ah. And then on Zoom, I'll just start scrolling through. Hey, let me open up .loop in the section called version L. And I just start flipping through forms, one after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. And that usually starts to wake them up as to why they want to use a realtor. Okay, moving right along, next bullet point. Do you know how to handle escrow or the closing process? What about the dates and timelines? How much is the right amount of time for inspections? How much is the right amount of time for loan commitment? Do we give them do we even give them the opportunity for loan commitment? Is the escrow non-refundable, or is there a portion of it that's not? And how's release and cancellation? Remember, I'm just asking questions, and none of this is like unfair. These are all facets to selling a house or a condo. So I'll just start asking these questions as we go, but I can't tell you how many agents I've trained in the last 20 blah years that have said, oh my God, I started asking these questions and it wakes the for sale by owner seller up big time, okay? Do you have any concern about security or safety? It cracks me up when I'll see a seller that has like 2 security systems and a Nest notification system and 3 deadbolt locks in the front door and blah, blah, blah. But I could be like an axe murderer or rapist and set an appointment for tonight at 5 and I'm in. Because they're saving $1. You know what I mean? It's like, really? Like, at least there's some element of pre-qualification. Now, right on this here, I want you to write ancillary services by this, okay? And the reason I ask you to write ancillary services is because if you don't walk with the listing, you're going to tie them to a mortgage company or a title company or a home inspection company or somebody that's going to tie them back to you. So in other words, let me explain what I mean. So in other words, I meet with the seller and they're not going to list with me. Well, I said to the seller, don't you at least want a mortgage company that will pre-screen any buyers you're going to have come walking through the home and maybe pull a credit report or something like that? Well, yeah, of course. So Brian Forrester or Sean Miller or Justin Kelly or whoever with my office, he will be happy to do that for you, no charge whatsoever. And at least it gives you a little bit of peace of mind. In the meantime, if they don't sell the property and they're like, who was that realtor that sent you over to me that helped me out? oh, Brian Forrest is going to say, you know, Joe Clement all day long. Absolutely, he'll be able to help you out. So I just keep that ancillary services element with me when I'm actually speaking to sellers so that we're on the same page with that. And it also ties me back to them, because if I can't, remember, for sale by owner is like a dating process. It's a courting process. You won't, remember, most times for sale by owner, sellers are not as motivated as, I got a job transfer in Atlanta and we've got to be there on January 1st. Like, that's usually not a for sale by owner. It's like, we want to try out the market, or, you know, we've grown out of this house, but we could live in it if we needed to. We could double two of the kids up in a room if we had to, you know, like, that's a for sale by owner seller a lot of times. Or it's time to downsize, but we're not sure that we want to. The stairs are getting rough, but I don't know. We could probably deal with it for another 2 or 3 years. You know, that's a for sale by owner seller. So in other words, if their motivation is not as high, we're going to still keep that contact with them. There were for sale by owner sellers that I courted for 6 months to a year, and all of a sudden I got a call, hey, we're ready, let's go. You know, but it was just, the timing was everything. Any questions on FSBOs? Am I just being that thorough, or you guys just have no questions?
I was just thinking of one that, in my experience, I told a first time owner, she was pretty rude, but it was also the question that I was trying to get through was she's like, well, I have a lawyer and they're going to pay 1%. Are you going to do 1%? And it was like, you know, it's kind of a roadblock. But when they say they have a lawyer who's going to handle it all and not be on the clock, I mean, can you just reiterate some of that?
I say most attorneys are not paid by percent. They're paid by hourly.
Okay.
And if the house doesn't sell, you're still paying. Or if there's a fall through, you're still paying. Or, you know, and also, who is the attorney representing? Remember, at Keller Williams, we still do single agency. Most attorneys force you into transaction brokerage when they're dealing with 2 clients at one time. When I do it for sale by owner, or when I did it for sale by owner, I represented the seller, but I made a buyer that was coming in with me as a non-rep. Or if I sold, if I sold it for sale by owner as a buyer agent, I represent the buyer as a single agent and make the seller sign a non-rep. So I start to educate them on agency is what I do, like on who's representing who. Because remember, all title companies, and it's cracks me up sometimes, they're like, well, we've got an attorney that's doing the closing. Like, yeah, well, you know what? The attorney can't represent the seller or the buyer. They have to be a transaction broker at that point. Star Title is a transaction broker if they're not representing a seller or you. So I start, when I get down that road, I start to talk about agency.
Okay, that actually, and just to continue that thought, do you do the thing that some people recommend of switching to transaction broker when you have no other agent for the buyer?
Well, are we talking about when it's a co-op sale?
Is that what that means?
Well, I don't understand your question.
There's a buyer that comes that doesn't have a real estate agent.
Oh, then I would function as a transaction broker. I only do single agency and non-rep when I'm representing a buyer who's buying it for sale by owner who's not listed. And the seller says, I'll pay you 3% if you bring a buyer. Like, have you ever heard that? Like, I'm not listing with you, but I'll pay you. And they're like, okay, so you're going to pay me 3% to negotiate against you. Is that what you're telling me? What do you mean? And then we start to have that conversation. Then we talk about agency. And I'll literally, and that's why Zoom's a great thing sometimes, I'll literally pull up a single agency form, a transaction brokerage form, a transition to transaction. I'll pull all that up for them and go, let me explain how agency works. Remember, you have an advantage. Most in the state of Florida, you're assumed to be a transaction broker if you're not anything else. And so you're with one of the few companies that says, hey, if you could be a single agent, do it. We know there's more liability, and we know that it's a different type of fiduciary relationship. However, we'll back you, and your E&O insurance backs you to be a single agent when you can be a single agent. Now, remember, I'm the broker for these 3 offices, so Keller Williams, Clearwater, Bel Air, and Tampa. So you can't be a single agent when we're in a situation that has both people from both offices within our 3 offices. You have to be a transaction broker, but that only happens a percentage of the time. Okay, did I answer that? We good with that? Did that help, Joe? Anybody else? Cool.
The phrase first line, I don't know if I missed it, but what does that mean?
Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot that one. Okay, it's first line in negotiation. So the key to the success of real estate is putting a seller in a buyer's shoes and a buyer in a seller's shoes. So I'll say to a seller, hey, do you want to be the first on a negotiation when there's a negotiation taking place? So what are you going to do? Put the buyer at the dining room table with you? And they're like, I'll pay $325. And the seller's like, I want $400. And the seller's like, buyer's like, I'm not paying more than $330. Or like, you're not going to do that. You want a non-biased, non-emotionally attached party to negotiate for you. It typically is going to yield you more success than when you just negotiate two people at a dining room table or on the phone. So that's what I mean. I'm glad you asked that because I forgot to go through that. Okay, so turn the page or turn the script. We're on this one. Let's list high. We can always come down later. Has anybody ever heard this one? You have, Joe? Let's try the market out. Let's just see. You know, we're not in any hurry. Let's just see what the market will do. So look at the first line I have on there. When is the most important time a home is on the market? When is that? Yeah, right when it comes on, right? The first week, 2 weeks. You know, think about this. When a buyer sits down, remember buyer and seller's shoes, seller and buyer's shoes. When a buyer sits down with a agent to write an offer on the property, what's the first thing they ask?
How long has it been on the market?
Yes, exactly. How long has this property been on the market? So they say a year or 3 months or 4 months. The buyer's like, ooh, so it's listed at 500, but it's been on for 6 months. We're going in low, right? And I educate the seller on this. But if I ask the same question, hey, when did this house come on the market? Last night at 9. Oh my goodness, if we don't go in full price, we don't even have a chance of getting this house. So that's going to come into play where this is concerned. Secondly, what type of reputation will your home have, right? Like, and here's the objection I get to this from sellers. Well, don't buyers come in and out of the market all the time? So like the people looking at a house in Pinellas County or Hillsborough County right now on December 15th aren't the same people that are going to be looking on January 15th. Well, you're absolutely right. But guess what? The same realtors are. And if successful realtors definitely are. So if I remember buyers and sellers, sellers to buyers. If I'm in a conference room and I say, oh, we're going to look at this house today. It's really cool. It's a 4-3. It's over in Landsbrook. You're going to love. In fact, I showed it last week. It's beautiful. Okay, and then we're going to look at this one house, and it's a gorgeous home over in East Lake Woods. Oh, now that one's overpriced. It's been on for 2 months. Now this next one, and then I'll stop and I'll go, hey, Mr. Seller, which pile do you want to be in? This one that's getting shown, or this one that has the reputation of overpriced? Don't even look at it. And like, oh, I want to be in that one. Right, that's why we're going to position it, and I use the word position. We're going to position your price at a point that's going to get the house to sell, not only in the quickest amount of time, but the highest amount of value for the property when we do that. And then third, do you understand the bracketing concept? Do you understand bracketing and how the consumer searches for property? Now, we talk about this when it comes to syndication of websites, and we talk about it just like, think of it like this. If you're telling the seller it needs to be priced at $399, or you're suggesting that they look at the analysis and see that it's priced at $399, and the seller's like, no, I want to do $424, right? And you're like, yeah, but you're kind of going into another price range. Everybody in that marketplace is looking for 400 down is going to miss your potential property. Joe.
That's where a couple theories came up. As pricing goes, they go $399, but is it more beneficial to just go flat 400 because now you're getting 400 and up, 400 and lower, 400 and up?
Could be. Yeah, I mean, it could be. Yep. He's asking about $399 versus 400. 400 gets both directions. They used to have this concept. I don't know if anybody's aware of this on here, but they used to have it called range pricing, where you would list a home like 380 to 410. Now, of course, people always offer the bottom of the range, but that solved what you were talking about. It was called market value pricing or something like that, value range pricing, which I saw benefits to it and disadvantages to it. It was both. So, but that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, any other questions or anything about that? We good? All right, let's go over to this one. We want to think it over. I'm sure none of you have heard that before. We're going to think it over and we'll call you tomorrow. What happens then? They don't call you. They're done. Like 80% of the time, right? What we want to think it over really means is you said something we don't like. We don't like the price you gave us. Damn, Mac, that goes back to price and commission. We don't like the commission you gave us. We don't like the fact that you've only been in the business 2 years. We don't like the fact that you haven't sold any homes over 750,000. But they're not going to say it. They just say, we want to think it over. So look at how we handle that on there. It says, that's great. And since 3 minds are better than 2, let's think out loud together. What are you thinking about? And then usually the real objection comes out. Well, we had, Joe, we loved your presentation, but we had a seller or agent in here the other night, and she said she can get $40,000 more than you can. Really now? Okay, great. Let's talk about that. Or Jesse, we loved your presentation, but how long have you been in the business? Yeah, no, we're not dealing with a new agent or whatever that, you know what I mean? Like, I would rather that come up. Remember, what I'm doing is I'm forcing or pulling the objections out of them. Because people, I mean, for the most part, want to be nice. So they're not going to be like, you're too new. They're going to be like, we're going to think it over. Let's not think. Let's talk. What is it? What's the issue? Now, granted, there are a small percentage of the time where, like, my daddy always told me you sleep, that does happen, but that's rare. It's usually you said something they don't like.
I experienced that. The one listing I had, it was the most unconventional listing I had, but they were taking care of their their granddaughter on the hip and everything. And I'm like, okay, just feel it out, dance this conversation. And in the end, they came up with, well, we just want to think it over. And I said, well, and I was very cordial of asking questions. And they said that, commission was once an issue, but I justified all the reasons they were saying, oh,
right.
More commission. And I felt that line of not pushing the button. If you become that boom, then they're gonna. It was reading them too.
Yeah.
So I said, I was like, well, let me, I'll give you guys a call tomorrow and check in with you guys because they were also a reference of people that I helped sell a home right across the street. So there was this strong connection, and I was just throwing the punches out there, and they ended up listening with me. But it was one of those moments of very rare moments of letting them think it over.
And that's going to happen.
Really
there are times where you just need to ease back. I mean, you're dealing with a house. It's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $600,000. It's not a shirt. So I get that. Yeah. But I also want to dig just a little bit more to make sure it isn't something that I did. Like, I can't tell you how many times an agent will lose to another agent because another agent lies about the value of the property. They get the listing and then they end up lowering it to the price that our agent said in the first place. So, as a broker, I get, like, if complaint calls come in, first of all, I won't speak to the client unless I speak to our agent first. That's just how I work, okay? And secondly, I want to know, like, they'll be like, it's not selling, and I'll talk to the agent, and they're like, we recommended a price reduction 4 times on October 1st, 9th, 11th, and I have that all in front of me when I speak to them. So that could come. So sometimes it's pushing just a little bit more to actually physically get that answer. Okay, I have a friend in the business. I'm sure you've never heard that before. Since it's as easy to get a real estate license as, whatever. Okay, so I can appreciate that, and almost everyone has a friend in the business. So let me answer the question. Do you absolutely have to sell your home? Well, yes, of course you do. Are you just looking to do your friend a favor and you need to sell it? Now, here's what I want you to think about. If they were going to list with the friend, you wouldn't be doing the presentation. They would have already just listed with them. Sometimes it occurs where it's like a spouse and a spouse or partners, whatever, and they're like, we're going to list with Susie because I play tennis with them on Wednesdays at noon or whatever. And the other person's like, nah, we're going to talk to a couple other agents. This is a $450,000 house or whatever. So that's usually what will happen. Secondly, when you're looking on here, it says, are you comfortable discussing your personal finances with a friend? What were the 2 things on the table for the listing presentation? The market plan and market analysis, right? So if there's 100 things on the marketing plan and I don't do 10 of them and you feel like I'm not doing my job, if you can fire me, how would it feel to fire your friend or your cousin or your aunt? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't work so well. Now, there are times where I will say, okay, you know what? I get it. Like, let's just use our marketplace. Let's say someone bought maybe they sold a house in, I don't know, Lakeland, okay, in Polk County, and they bought a house in West Chase. Well, now they want to use the Lakeland agent. It's 3 years later to sell the West Chase home, and the Lakeland agent doesn't know our market the way a one of our agents would. So I might say, hey, I get your relationship, or maybe it was a friend that sold their house in Lakeland and sold them here. I would rather pay a referral fee to the person in Lakeland than not get the listing at all. And when it's family, oftentimes they're just giving that. Like when I have a family member that sells, because I don't sell, and I refer, I'm just giving that much. So I'll tell the agent, hey, give them the 25% that you would have been giving me. So I'll just handle it like that. So just something to keep in mind where that's concerned with a friend in the business. Okay, I'm sorry, you had a question?
Clarify, when you said give them the 25%, what does that mean?
So it could be 20%, 25%, whatever you're paying for the referral fee, it comes off the top of the gross commission income. So in other words, if an agent, let's say in Louisiana, gives you a referral for a buyer here in Clearwater, then you're paying them 25% of the 2.5% or whatever that you would get over there in Louisiana. But maybe the Louisiana person's sending their grandson to you to buy their house. And he might go, you know what? I'm not taking that money. You give it to my grandson. So you're just crediting it to them at the time of closing instead of paying them. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Okay, let's go over here. Another agent said they could get me more money. This is when you meet with a seller and maybe they're meeting with 3 agents and you tell them $499 and you got the stats to prove it and the comp to prove it and everything else, and they had some other frumpy agent tell them $524, right? Well, what sellers can understand is this. Look, I can appreciate that, and what you probably don't understand is an agent will list your property, and I will separate the word out, overpriced, assuming they could take the listing now and then start beating you up on the price week after week, okay? So that's one thing. Next, they're afraid to tell you the truth. Do you want the truth? Of course you do. Now, here's what I want you to hear on this particular element. What we do is we teach, this is what I suggest. You know, when I started in real estate in 1910, okay, you had to go to the office to use computers. In fact, when my mom started selling real estate in 1975, there was one computer for the whole office. It was the size of these 2 desks. And you literally put a phone into the computer, blah, blah, blah. It was called a Realtron computer. Well, nowadays, you know, we have the MLS in a laptop or anything. So I will literally take the computer to the client's house. If I know that Susie from Remax was there yesterday, sorry if there's any Remax guests on here. I keep forgetting about that piece of the puzzle. And they say it was 524. I will say, you know what, let me show you how we do a market analysis. And I'll literally open up Stellar on the computer with the seller. And I'll say, okay, let's start plugging in. How many bedrooms? 4. 4. How many baths? 3. 3. What's your square footage? 3,200. Okay, let's do 30,000 to 3,400. Click. Okay, what is your neighborhood? Oh, it's, you know, whatever, East Lake Woodlands. And I show them how to do the fields. And then they start to see how the comps start showing up. And then don't get me wrong, I have a completed market analysis that I'm going to share with them as well. But there's something to having them do it with the information in front of you while it's happening that will really show a transparency to the client that you're not trying to manipulate, because you know what they'll do. Like, oh, your house is in, you know, whatever subdivision. Like Lutz is a prime example, I think. Like those of you on here that are from Tampa Properties, or even for us here as well. Like you'll have a house that's like in, you know, Villa Rosa or Heritage Harbor that's right up against the Hillsborough County line. And then if we go over to Pasco, we know that the home is not quite as much in Pasco as is in Hillsborough. So do we start using comps from Hillsborough into Pasco, or from North Pinellas, like Tarpon Springs? Do we use Tarpon Springs comps and Holiday? I mean, you get my point. You can manipulate a market analysis any way we want. But when you can't manipulate it when you're showing them how you do it with the computer in front of them. So I can't tell you how many agents I've had through the years that are like, that was the thing that got the listing. When they saw how I did the market analysis with them right in front of them with the computer open, that made all the difference in the world. So, you know, be COVID smart with that. But you can even do it on a Zoom. You can open up Stellar with them right there and say, let me show you how I came up with this amount. And just click it open and let them see. Okay? All right, next objection. You haven't sold any homes in my area. You know, when I was selling real estate in the early 1900s, there was this thing called the Robert Bruss Report or something. It was in the newspaper, because when I started, it was right before the internet started. That's how geezerish I am. Okay, so people would go in this Robert Bruss Report, and Robert Bruss was like the real estate advisor. And he would say, here are the 10 things you need to ask the agent. You know, it's like if you Google now, what should I be looking for in the agent that sells? And a lot of times they're going to like, have they sold 5 houses in your neighborhood? Have they sold 3 condos in your building? Whatever. And so this does come up, at least it has for me before. And I'll ask them, let me ask you a question, Mrs. Buyer, I'm sorry, Mrs. Seller. Do you know where your buyer is going to come from? What's the answer to that? Do you know where your buyer is going to come from? The answer is no, of course they don't know, and neither do I. But I'm almost positive that your buyer is not going to come from your condo building or your neighborhood or your area. Many times, not your zip code. So what difference could that make? Okay. Next, buyers do not know special market areas. Let me explain what I mean by that. A lot of our buyers, probably over 50% of them, aren't from this area. They're from another area altogether. And people from out of this area know Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. Tarpon's minimal. Unless you know the band, the high school band program, which is the best in the country, right? Yeah, it's one of the best. So, but my point is if I'm sitting on my balcony in Philadelphia or Boston or New York, whatever, I'm not like, wouldn't you love a cute little bungalow in Dunedin? Like people don't know, or Lutz or Brandon or Lithia or, they don't know these places. They know airport code areas, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, PIE, TPA, or whatever that is, like they know those places. They don't know special market areas. So whether I've sold a home, like there's no one that cares whether it's outside of Tampa Bay that really knows if I've sold a home in West Chase or not, even though your house sits in West Chase. Now remember, I'm selling a service, not the home. So I'm going to sell, we teach in career visioning something called expectations dialogue. And in the expectations dialogue, we talk about how do you win with me? How do you lose with me? What are your expectations? How often do you want to hear from me? What way do you want to hear from me? That's the service part of this and them choosing you. It has nothing to do with whether you sold a home in the Greens in West Chase or in the Fords in West Chase. No one cares. And buyers don't look for that. It makes no difference. Now, one of the things on any of these objections I'm going to ask them is, why is that important to you? Why is that important to you? Well, because don't you need to know the product? I know your product. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 3,200 square foot, redone kitchen and bathrooms with a pool on a golf course. I know your product. Now, the key is, where am I going to find the buyer for your product? Yes?
I actually got one response from time. Do you not know the HOA like rules and regulations of what we do here and all the benefits and all the amenities?
Yeah, I can. They're online.
Yeah, that's just our research in that moment of going into it. But yeah, okay, no, that's pretty much it.
Yep, that's all I do is I say all that's online. That's an objection that can maybe stand water 20 years ago, but not now. Okay. Next, I ask why that's important. Then we just talked about that. Then I'll say, don't make the assumption that a listing agent is the reason a property sold or who sold it. My dog could list my house today at market value, and she's going to have a bunch of offers tonight. And she's a dog. But if her name was listing agent, Dolly, that's my dog, she's going to get offers. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. And she's got no expertise. But the best agent in Tampa Bay could list my house tonight for 30% over price. They're not getting an offer because they're thinking the seller's not being realistic. So that's the conversation to have around that, okay? What exactly do you do to sell homes, okay? And that's a valid question. Let me ask you, are you aware that there's 2 types of real estate agents, passive and active? I'm an active agent, meaning when you sign the contract tonight, that's an embedded command, I will spend my time actively marketing your home to the public and to all the other active real estate agents in the Tampa area to get it sold. Remember, marketing plan, marketing analysis. So now I'm going to get the marketing plan out. And I'm going to highlight, remember, I'm going to take you back for a second. What were the 3 most important elements in them in selling, in picking the company and the agent that sells their home? I want an agent that does open houses weekly. I want an agent that belongs to an international marketing element from luxury marketing. I want an agent that's very connected with technology. Well, I'm going to open up command for them to see it. Whatever I need to do to make that happen. But the marketing plan is going to be specific, and I'm going to literally, before I get to the property, highlight, or on the Zoom, highlight the elements of the marketing plan that key into what their 3 most important elements were. Because if they weren't important to them, don't you try to make it important to them, unless it's something obvious that it takes to get the house sold. Next, let's look at my schedule. I will open my Google Calendar and let them see that I lead generate. on a regular basis every day. So that means all of you on Zoom, Beth, Irene, Dan, Blah, Jesse, Joe, you need to have lead generation in your Google Calendar for them to see that exists. Hey, see that every day from 9 to 11 or 9 to noon or whatever? That's my lead generation time that I'm actively marketing, just like I said. And I'm marketing your home every single day to other active people in the area. So I'm going to be working my database, finding buyers for my sellers, sellers for my buyers, and so forth. So I'm going to be as transparent as possible where that's concerned. And then the other thing, I want you to write down lore, L-O-R-E. What does lore stand for? Anybody know?
Story.
What?
Deep story.
No. In Keller Williams world, what does a lore mean? Anybody know lore?
Language of real estate.
Yes, sir, Dan Mac. Language of real estate. Okay. So what I want you to think about is this. A lure will show how either you, your office, Keller Williams, and let's say our Ubaldini offices, or let's say Keller Williams as a whole, like there's what, 11 or 12, I think, in Tampa Bay, compare to the market, compare to the MLS, compare to December of 2019 to December of 2020, compare month to date in 2020 to month to date in 2019, whatever it is, that's what the language of real estate does. Now, some of you might go, oh, my lure is not strong enough. You make it strong enough, and you're not manipulating any numbers. You make it big enough so that it's strong enough so that you stand out. You will not compete against other agents that are using a lure. I promise you that. Most have no idea what it is, okay? And when you put our numbers together, I mean, our 3 offices sell well over $1 billion of real estate a year in this area. It's very hard to compete with that. So even as a newer agent, excuse me, you're still going to use that and stand strong if you've got to use that with all the Keller Williams offices together. So that's what I'll use in this. This is where I bring out the lore language of real estate sales stats, and I will make that in is it residential oriented, is it commercial oriented, or whatever it is, I'm going to make that line up. Same thing with this. What makes you different from the last agents that I've spoken with? It's the same answers. Same thing, okay? Any questions on that? Nope. Okay, turn the page. So we're on, will you cut your commission? Because I'm sure that no one's dealing with anybody trying to cut their commission. And someone asked that earlier today to make sure that we cover that, okay? So first answer, I can appreciate the fact that another agent said they were cut their commission. However, what I want you to think about is this. If another agent doesn't have the courage to stand up to you regarding their own worth, how strong could they possibly be in defending you and the price we set for your home? Beth, I've got that courage. Do you feel I could sell your home? Great, let's go ahead and list the property. Next, what's more important to you? The amount of commission you pay or the amount you walk from the closing table with? And this is when we have the discount broker conversation, right? In other words, list to sale price ratio, right? So my listings or my company's listings or my office's listings, whatever number you need to use, sell 99% to list to sale ratio, or 98%, or 106% it could be in today's market, right? Versus a discount broker, they might be like, slap the property in the MLS and good luck, we'll put a sign up and pray that it sells. And then they might only get like 90% of the list price. So remember, you got to study your stats and make sure you're using the ones that make the most sense based on the presentation you're making. But that's exactly how I handle that. So I could go, okay, excuse me, I'm charging 5%, he's charging 4%. You might save 1% with him, but are you going to lose 6% based on the discount broker? And I always will teach them, discount brokers will yield you a discount bottom line. Discount brokers will yield you a discount bottom line. Okay, list sell price ratio we just talked about. This is your value proposition. I'm sure if you're at this point, you've already taken Ignite, and in Ignite 1, they teach you to write a value proposition. Now remember, your value proposition should not be blanket or broad stroked. It's going to be unique to the seller that you're speaking to. My value proposition will vary for a $740,000 house versus an $80,000 condo. It's just going to, because what's going to be important to those people is going to vary based on both those levels, okay? So be very cognizant of your value proposition and how you're going to be able to deliver that, because that's another reason why you're worth your money. I mean, you get what you pay for. I don't care what the situation is. Okay, and then presentation is everything. Remember, you're selling a service, you're not selling a property. The property either sells itself or it doesn't. You're selling them feeling comfortable and trusting you to sell their home. So it goes back to the common sense. If I'm going into a nice home, I'm going to dress very appropriately for where I'm at, what I'm doing, and how I'm doing it, because there's so many people that forget that concept in our industry. Okay, questions about anything that we covered at all? That goes for Zoom people too. What's that? Oh.
Question always wipes my mind. Do you have any questions?
Do you guys have any on here at all? Did you guys? All right, so share with me something you learned that really stood out. Jesse.
That part of objection handling is fishing for hidden objections.
Yeah, he's saying part of objection handling is fishing for hidden objections or drawing them out of the people. And remember what I said, I'd rather you know what they're going to be before you do your presentation. So you're not, when you start doing that, forget it. You're not getting a listing when they throw it at you. Okay, excellent, excellent. What else? Anybody else learn anything? Nothing? Okay.
They're all muted.
Are you
Okay,
muted?
I got one. I have
Okay,
one.
go for it.
I like the idea of during the whole kind of the big picture of this is really just how you keep going back to focusing on the service piece.
Yeah.
I'm from a hospitality background for 25 years, so that's like in my blood. So it speaks to me very well that it makes it a lot more comfortable talking about this stuff when you know that's underneath, that's what you're providing. So I thought
That's what it is. It's you. It's not the property itself.
Yep.
Exactly. Very good.
And also, Renee, similar to that is going back to their three most important, what's most important to them and bringing that back in over and over again while you're going through your presentation.
Right. Was that Beth, I think, that said that? Yeah. So
Yep.
that goes back to the pre-qualification script. Circle that and star that and make sure you've written next to that the answers to those questions are the blueprint for your entire presentation. They're the blueprint for your entire presentation. So make sure you know that. And even when you're handling objections, make sure you kind of go back to that. You know, you said that marketing was extremely important to you. Let me show you again how our Facebook campaign and our partnership with Google through our command system is going to make a difference for you in that. Do not ignore our technology. Do not, because no one's got anything else like that in the marketplace. You want to make sure you highlight that even when dealing with the objections themselves. Okay? Let's get one more.
I noticed that part of your strategy is transparency, so to speak. So it's almost like the more honest and transparent and unhidden you make things, the more it almost kind of scares them straight.
I like that. You're right. He said transparency scares them straight. But I am very vulnerable with that too. But I'm going to be very realistic with them too as well. So I'll show them .loop or whatever, DocuSign. I'll show them all the forms. I show them all the documents. I show them all of the marketing strategies we've got. I show them command. I'll show them all that stuff. Joe?
The one thing too that just sticks out is how relevant you point out to your time. It's your time you're not wanting to waste. It's their time you're not wanting to waste. It's do you want to work with me? Do I want to work with you? Kind of cut and dry. Let's get these out on the table so we know what we're
Right.
doing.
Yeah, the time factor makes a big difference.
Time is, I think, the most valuable thing we all have as individuals. And this, in general, you're giving that a little bit to help them, and your understanding of, well, where's their head at? Can I help them? Are they willing to help? How serious are they? I mean, the questions that just roll out, and then from the pre-qual, and then the objections too. It's you're having that dance. They're asking extra questions.
So, and here's the thing to Joe's point right now. Don't skip the pre-qualification process. And I've told the story before if you've taken this class before. I had a seller that I was in her 50s, and I sold her first home she ever bought. And she was a lovely lady, Gwen Stimson. I remember it's like yesterday. She bought the house, 10139 Allenby Court, Orlando 32821. I know it. This is why I know this, okay? Because she called me and she's like, hey, I'm retiring and I want you to sell the house. My kids are in North Carolina. I want to move up there. I'm like, great. And then I hang up the phone, whatever. This is my listing. I sold her the house 3 years before that. Whatever, let me do the market analysis. I'll get the paperwork together. I was going to her house that Saturday and we'll list the house. Big deal, whatever. I get to the house, say this is March. I think it was like March was the time. So say it's March. So I get to the house, I sit down at her kitchen table, and she shows me, oh, we added this, we changed that, blah, blah, great. She goes, okay, now I'll be retiring next January, and my last day is to sit that, and I'm like getting there, I'm seething, like getting mad at her. Like, why am I here now? Now remember, she's never sold a house because this is the only house she's ever owned. She's like, I figured it takes at least 6 to 7 months. And you know what? It's because I skipped the pre-qualification. She would have told me, I'm retiring in January. Great, I'll see you in October. Not an issue. But because the idiot here, I didn't ask those questions. I wasted my time. And then
It's that essence that we get excited almost. So we go, I got it.
yeah, it's done. It's like, whatever, this is slam dunk. It's my deal. But here I wasted my time and it wasn't her fault. It was completely my fault. So don't skip the pre-qualification element. Okay. All right, guys, I hope you learned a lot. I'm hoping so. Hope you got something you can apply. And thanks for coming today. And I appreciate your patience with the Zoom factor. Okay, you guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.